Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And I am learning so much about travel, one of my favorite things, and I'm so excited to learn more. Great to see you. So is it true that part of the fun of planning a trip is just the planning and anticipation?
It is. There's actually scientific research that's been done about how much anticipation adds to our pleasure. And it's so true. I mean, there's nothing like getting that confirmation that you have this trip booked, and then you can start to delve into the details and read about every place you're going to go and talk to your friends who've been there and show off to your friends of where you're going. And it really does add to the anticipation. And I think especially after the last 2 years of being afraid to have things, I think, to anticipate, it's such a psychological boost to have a trip on the books.
And so when you think about planning a trip, since that is half the fun, that's really what you specialize. I mean, I know you can help us go from A to B tomorrow, but you really like to help people put together more of an intense trip, more of an adventurous trip.
Yeah, I'm one of those contrarian people who the more complicated, the more that I enjoy putting into it. But what I really enjoy is listening to clients and learning about their likes and dislikes, and then helping guide them to the right choice for them. Because whether we're talking about resorts or cruise ships or guided tours, there are so many choices out there that for the average person to be able to sift through them, it's just impossible. We're overloaded with information.
And I think most trips are a nice investment for people as far as an investment in their own personal happiness. And so they're not cheap sometimes. So it's best to go with an expert that really can help put together something that really suits you. And
yeah, after our home and after our car, travel is our third biggest expense.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so
it's not
it is
groceries when you're
no,
a 16-year-old?
It's not groceries.
Oh, really?
Maybe college for the kids might rank up there, but after your home and after your car, travel's the biggest expense for most people. And part of it is the time, investing that time. You'd hate to take 2 weeks away from work or away from family and end up with a total dud of a trip. I mean, that's almost worse than losing the money on a trip. So that's my job, is to make sure that your money is well spent and you don't have a dud of a trip.
Well, one of the things I know that intrigue people is traveling to Europe. A lot of times it's like, gosh, I don't know where to go. I don't know if I want to stay in one country. It seems kind of daunting to go from country to country, but you have a way that we can see a bigger part of Europe in a pretty easy way.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk a little bit about river cruising. And I think river cruising is one of those vacation options that people have heard of. Maybe you've had a friend who's gone on a river cruise and has come back raving about it, but a lot of people don't know very much about it, and they don't understand why it is really such a great way to see this big continent. And Europe is a very diverse place. I mean, there are about 30 countries on the European continent. The great thing about the continent is that there are rivers that go right through the heart of all the places you want to go. So river cruising is a great way to get your feet wet, not literally, get your feet wet for a first trip to Europe. Or if you've been to Europe a few times and you want to kind of see it in a different way, it's a great way to do that. So it's a great choice for a lot of people going to Europe.
So when you hear the word river cruise, that is what size of a boat?
Interestingly enough, almost all the river cruise ships in Europe are exactly the same size. And they're designed that way because they have to fit through the locks and dams, just like the lock and dam here.
I never thought of that.
But instead of kind of big and wide like the one here is, they're narrow and long. So they're all quite narrow and long. And they have to fit underneath low bridges. Think like the Prescott train bridge, that low.
Wow.
Very, very low bridges. And so they're designed to very, very precise specifications. So those ships will hold anywhere from about 120 to about 220 passengers. Always on the same size ship, but about 120 to 220 passengers.
Which I think would appeal to people that perhaps a giant cruise on the ocean would not, if they don't want to be around that many people.
Indeed. Yes, it's a very, very different experience. It's much
more
smaller.
Laid back.
Yeah, it's more laid back. It's much more intimate. You get a chance to get to know not just your fellow travelers. You'll know the crew and the staff because, it's a small ship and it doesn't have hundreds and hundreds of crew members. They have very high crew to passenger ratios, so very, very personalized service, but on a very small, intimate scale. And so many people, who've gone on those big ocean cruises will come to a river cruise, and it's like moving from the state fair to a boutique hotel. It just really is an incredible experience, and they'll go back for a second or a third or a fourth river cruise.
Oh, I know plenty of people that is their favorite thing to do in the fall usually. And for people that have taken an ocean cruise before, what are the major differences?
So as you said, probably the first major difference is the size of the ship. It's going to be a much, much smaller ship. Again, that 100.
But still all the amenities.
Yep, all the amenities, not on the big scale that you're going to have. Many of them don't have pools. A few of them do, because they really are destination focused. And ocean cruises, maybe you're going to enjoy that day at sea and enjoy the facilities on the ship. River cruises are in port for the majority of the time that they sail. So that's a second major difference, that they're much, much more focused on the destination. And the third one is that compared to a standard ocean cruise, river cruises are going to be much more inclusive. So the shore excursions that you pay extra for on most ocean-going cruise ships are included in the price of a river cruise. And of course, that's really important because, nobody wants to go to a charming village in Germany and not see all the sights. So those are included. Typically, beer and wine with lunch and dinner are also included, and some of the cruise lines even have like evening happy hours that are included in the price. It just depends on the brand of cruise that you choose.
So there's many different kinds of river cruises. What one is your favorite?
So there are actually about 20 different cruise brands out there.
So I'm familiar with Viking.
So like in sort of every aspect of travel, there's always kind of a good, a better, and a best. And Viking kind of falls squarely in that good category. They're essentially kind of the entry-level river cruise line. Their ships are very, very well designed. They're all new. They're going to carry about 215 passengers. And as you kind of move up to the better category and the best category, that same size ship might only carry 150 passengers or 120 passengers. So the staterooms can vary quite a bit. The quality of the service can vary quite a bit. And then the other big difference between the brands is what they include and what they don't include. Viking, to give a good example, they include one excursion in each port. So it's typically going to be a city tour that's included in the price. And, that's a very nicely done city tour. If you start to move up to the better or the best level, you're going to have a lot more choices. And those choices are going to be more excursions. So, you might be able to choose between, say, a city tour or a hike or a biking tour, or, my personal favorites are some of the culinary experiences you can have. So you might go for a wine tasting, or you might go in Germany, and have beer and pretzels. So they're going to give you more choices in terms of what's available. And then just the standard of everything will vary as well. So the standard of food, the number of staff members. It doesn't sound like a ship with 200 people can be crowded, but that's like 50% more passengers than the ship that has 150 passengers. So, it's important to understand that there are a lot of choices out there, and one of the things I can do is help clients pick the right choice for them.
So is it all money driven?
The price differences actually sometimes can be very, very subtle. Sometimes it's actually just awareness. We all are aware of certain brands because they spend a lot of money on advertising. So some of it is just that level of awareness. And I also think it is the experience. And it's really understanding what's important to you individually. And so for some people, that city tour with a large group is exactly what they're looking for. Well, great. We have a great option for you. Somebody who's looking to do, a wine tasting in a chateau overlooking the river, we've got an option for you. So the good news is there are a lot of choices out there.
So the river cruise ships, boats, we can see both sides of land.
Yeah, the good news is you're never out of sight of land. And I always kind of joke, if the ship actually sinks, you might get your feet wet. So you don't have to worry too much about that. But no, you're always in sight of land.
Is that something people think about? Because to be honest with you, I sort of like to see the land.
Well, I have to say my dream cruise that I have yet to do is a transatlantic crossing where you have 7 days of no land. But on a river cruise, you're always within sight of land. And it's actually, I think, physically impossible to get seasick. Rivers are very, very calm. There's no motion. That's actually a very common question. Will I get seasick on a river cruise? No.
Interesting. Yeah. So you mentioned staterooms. Can you please talk about them? And because the ship is smaller, I would assume there are fewer choices.
There are fewer choices. And really the main choice that people have to make is between 3 different types of staterooms. So there are going to be suites, of all different types. And then there are going to be balcony staterooms. And those are going to be the most popular staterooms on the river cruise ships because, you can sit out on your balcony, have a glass of wine, and watch this incredible scenery unfold. There are also staterooms on the lower level. One of my colleagues calls it the swan level because you can actually see the bottom of the swans, like you look up at the swans. And so those are staterooms with windows. And those are going to be the most affordable option on the ship. And, particularly for single travelers who are looking to go on a river cruise ship, those lower level staterooms can be a really good choice and a really good value. But most people will choose either a stateroom with a balcony or a suite.
So a suite is on the same balcony level as well, or
so
no?
The river cruise ships have 4 decks. There's an upper deck, which is kind of the sun deck, where they have seating areas. Some of them have pools, jogging track, that type of a thing. And then 2 decks of staterooms with balconies and suites, and then 1 level of the swan level.
And the swan level, even you don't get seasick.
No, gosh, no.
Wow,
no.
that's nice.
Although it sounds a little bit like being in a washing machine, because you have the water outside, but you
that...
get used to it pretty quickly. Yeah.
So tell me about the different routes that you can take, please, because I bet that's as numerous as...
There are probably about a dozen different routes that you can take in Europe. The 2 most popular ones are the Rhine.
Yes,
and that's going to start in Amsterdam and end in Basel, Switzerland. So you'll go through Holland, Germany, France, and Switzerland. And then the other...
How fun, though. I mean,
it's beautiful. The Rhine River is just beautiful. And you get Germany and France, and you kind of get this really neat comparison between them. You go to Strasbourg in France, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. So it's a great place to start river cruising. The other really popular option is the Danube. So that's going to go from a little town near Munich in Germany.
München, as they say.
München, yes. If you want to go to Oktoberfest, there's a river cruise for that. And it'll end in Budapest, Hungary, which is a totally different place because you've moved from Western Europe into Eastern Europe. And
you see the difference.
You see the difference. It is really different. Budapest is actually a beautiful city. It reminds me of Paris, but it's nowhere near as nice. It's a little older, and the communist times were pretty rough in Budapest. So beautiful city, very interesting history. You also go to Vienna, and that's one of the highlights of a Danube River cruise is you'll have a day or 2 in Vienna to see really, one of Europe's probably most incredible capitals.
So out of that, on that cruise, where do you fly in and out of? Because you just go one way, right?
Yeah. It depends on which direction you're going, but most people will fly into Munich or Prague, and Prague makes a great pre-cruise or post-cruise extension, and then they'll come home from Budapest for the Danube. And if you're going on the Rhine, you'll fly into Amsterdam, and you'll fly back from Basel, Switzerland.
Now, what about the Scandinavian countries? Do they have cruises also?
They have cruises along the coast,
but
there are really no navigable rivers in Scandinavia. So the other places you could go is France. There are river cruises in the south of France through wine country. There's a really cool option on the Seine River that starts and ends in Paris. But the highlight of that is you go to Normandy, where the D-Day landings took place. So that's a really
and you get to stop there?
You get to stop there. You get to see the D-Day landings. It's a really cool experience. The Douro River in northern Portugal, people have probably not heard of it, but it's the heart of an incredible wine region in Portugal that's really kind of on the upswing. So that's another place you can go on a river cruise. And if you're really adventurous, there are actually river cruises in Russia. There are river cruises that start in Budapest and go east. So you go through Bulgaria and Romania. You actually go to Transylvania if you want to go there for Halloween. You could do that. And there's one little river in northern Italy that's navigable called the Po River that starts and ends in Venice.
So you can do your interviews with us and then find out what's important to us and then put us in the right direction.
Yep.
And what is the shortest river cruise and what is the longest?
So almost every river cruise is 7 days long. Most people aren't just going to go to Europe for 7 days. So they'll probably spend a couple days before the cruise, maybe spend those days in Amsterdam if they're going on the Rhine, because they've never been to Amsterdam, and then spend a few days in Switzerland afterwards. So most people will go for, a 7-day cruise and 10 to 14 days. There are some 2-week cruises that actually combine the Rhine and the Danube together. And then there are a couple 10-day cruises in there. But the standard river cruise is 7 days long. One of the neat things that you can do, if you've got a little more time, is you can actually do back-to-back river cruises. So you could start in France, you could do the Seine, get off, go down south, catch the river cruise on the Rhone River, go through Provence, and then hop across the country to the city of Bordeaux and do a river cruise in Bordeaux.
Well,
so
you'd really
3
see
weeks.
a lot.
Yeah, 3 weeks you could see all of France. So you can put them together. You can also combine them with other vacations in Europe, and that's something that I do a lot of for people. Maybe they have a child or a grandchild who's studying abroad and they want to go visit them and then spend some time on a vacation by themselves. So, really a very flexible way to build a nice moving hotel into your vacation. You see a lot. You don't have to unpack and pack every night, and the staff just always takes really, really good care of you.
So when you fly in, is transportation from the airport to the cruise line automatically figured out?
Generally, yes. I mean, that's something that I do, is to kind of take the wrinkles off of vacation. So if it isn't included, we'd make sure it's all taken care of. And, we can have that nice little gentleman with a sign with your name on it waiting for you at the baggage claim, which really is a nice way to start your trip.
Absolutely. So again, these are something that, how much lead time would we need to plan a great vacation like this?
Most people plan river cruises about a year to 18 months in advance.
And what is the best season to do this?
I personally like spring and fall because I don't like the heat. And it's just as hot in Europe in the summer as it is here. So I like the spring and fall. I think spring is beautiful. Everything is coming to life. The flowers are blooming. Fall, the colors. The fall colors in Europe. Imagine the winery, the grape growing areas along the side of the rivers. You just have this tapestry of gold and red. So I tend to think summer or spring and fall are the best times to go. But the river cruises will actually start in mid-March and go through December, because in December, Europe has those famous Christmas markets. And so you can enjoy those from a river cruise as well.
So as far as COVID is concerned, how is it going in Europe?
So many European countries over the last few weeks have been removing most or not, if not all, of their COVID restrictions. Right now, if you're an American who is fully vaccinated, the majority of countries in Europe will allow you to come visit without a test. So you can just hop on a plane, show your vaccination card, and go. Not every country is there, but most of them are there. Things are going about the same as they are here, and that COVID seems to be retreating pretty quickly. So river cruises actually operated for most of the year last year. I went on one in November, and it was a lot like here. There were some places where you did have to wear a mask, and other places where you didn't have to wear a mask. But all the crews will be fully vaccinated, and the river cruise companies actually do require that all the guests are fully vaccinated as well for the foreseeable future.
So how can you help us, please? What's some good contact information?
Best way to get a hold of me is to visit my website. It's www.tedblanktravel.com. You can also give me a call at 651-964-8245, or you can visit my website, tedblanktravel.com, and there's a beautiful picture that I took in November of the Moselle River as my cover picture on my Facebook page. So check it out. You'll see that tapestry of gold. It's just beautiful.
Wow. Ted Blank, Luxury Travel and Adventure, just waiting to help you. And I'm very interested now in European river cruising. Thanks for coming in today. And you are listening to another edition of The Travel Show with host Ted Blank and on AM 1460 and FM 97.7 KDWA in Hastings. This travel show has been brought to you by Ted Blank, Luxury Travel and Adventure.